We knew going into this 9.5 years ago that we were going to need a tool to show off the Hummer's unique characteristics and what sets it apart from all the other trucks and four-wheel drives out there. We put in this 7-station demonstration course here in the back of the dealership, and it has been our most invaluable tool. 7 stations to show off the features and the benefits of the Hummer, showing off a different one at each station. It's on site, it's very safe, it's very low speed. We built it out of asphalt and concrete, so it's also been very, very low maintenance, and it stood the test of time. We find that once the customer comes back here and experiences this course, and we let them drive it themselves after we run them through it once, that there's no longer a question of what makes the Hummer different from everything else and why the Hummer costs what it costs. It is then just a matter of how it fits into their particular situation. What happens with a customer, once we get them back here, you can see, first they're surprised to see the test track. You know, it probably exceeds their expectations. The next thing that happens is I drive them through and I'm explaining the features and the technical parts of the Hummer at each station. You can see their adrenaline start rising and rising. There's always a smile on the face. It's like they're at Busch Gardens around the corner. They're really having a good time. And then we get to the point where we finally put them behind the wheel. You can tell that their adrenaline's at an all-time high. I've had customers, when we get done, actually purchase right afterwards. And I've had almost every customer tell me, now I know why it costs what it costs. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to neutral with the transmission, and we're going to lock the Hummer down in low range. That's going to give us, and go down to first gear. That's going to give us maximum torque and also give us a little more control. Top speed right now is about 6 miles an hour, so the customers can't take off with the vehicle. Our first obstacle is what we call the modulation stand. It is a stand to show how the TT4 system works. And what we're going to do, we're going to put the right front up on a concrete barrier and the left rear on another concrete barrier back here, and then the left front and the right rear will be dangling on rollers. It gives you loss of traction at 2 corners of the vehicle, and in most cases, in most four-wheel drives, at that point in your life, you'd be stuck. So it'll give us the feeling of being stuck and show how the TT4 will get us off of there. What we're going to do, the way that, explain to the customer, the way the TT4 works here is a constant throttle pressure. So I'm going to get the throttle up, keep it at a constant pressure. The TT4 will lock the wheels down that are spinning and pull us right off. Our next obstacle is the ditch crossing. At the ditch crossing here, what we explain is the approach and departure angles of the Hummer. The Hummer has huge approach and departure angles. The Army did not want to get stuck in tight places. Whereas you'll notice on Hummers where other vehicles have big overhangs, the Hummer's wheels are at the corners. We'll slide down in the ditch. Pretty steep going down in here. You'd bury the front of any other vehicle down in this ditch. But with the Hummer, we're going to get all tires. Now on each corner of the Hummer, on each wheel, there's a gear reduction hub. The gear reduction hubs give us double torque at the final drive where you really need it the most. Whereas in another vehicle, if you were in a situation with this type of angle coming up, you'd be raising the motor, raising your RPM, spinning wheels. But the Hummer has so much torque, it's more like an elevator. It comes right out. Our third obstacle is a 18-inch step. Now the Hummer will actually do 22 inches. We chose an 18-inch step, a little easier for the customer to get up, number one. And number two, it also demonstrates the capability of the Hummer at full payload, which is 2 tons. And again, we're going to nudge the wheels up. Now one thing about the Hummer is it is a big, powerful vehicle, but it's also a finesse vehicle. You don't have to overpower things or try to overpower things like you do with other four-wheel drives because of the amount of traction you can generate. So we're doing things with torque and traction as opposed to doing things with RPMs and momentum. Easier on the truck, causes less damage, and off we go. Now we're going to give it a little steady throttle. The left wheel will climb up, it will lock down the right wheel, which is up in the air for a brief moment, and then it'll lift us right up. Same thing with the back. You always want to do these things at small angles so that the system can tell which wheel has traction and which doesn't. Our fourth obstacle is the log crossing. Now what we've done, we've put 15-inch logs in very loose gravel. Other four-wheel drives trying to climb up the log will dig holes in the gravel, and there you go, you get stuck. One thing you want to do on the logs is hit them fairly straight on, because you don't want to get that log wedged in between your front tires, or your rear tires for that matter. Now, one thing to notice is a lot of people ask about the big hump down the middle, of course, and that's all our drivetrain. We're sitting on either side so we can create ground clearance, at the same time keep our center of gravity very low. 15 inches, a lot of ground clearance. Hummer has 16, and you'll notice when we climb over these logs, you'll notice a couple things. Number one, we don't bottom out. The other thing you notice, we don't get tossed around much. This is where that Hummer suspension really shows itself, and virtually without spinning a tire. Next obstacle is the side slope. This is a wonderful show of the TT4 system. As we make this climb, what will happen is left front tire way off the ground, right front on the concrete, right rear, because of the angle, again well off the ground, left rear in the gravel. So the only wheel with appreciable traction is the right front wheel, which is up on the concrete, but it also has no weight on it because all the weight's down in the gravel. And I'm going to give it the steady throttle, and the truck will catch, lead us up and over. The real beauty of the Hummer, what really separates it from the other vehicles, is at this angle, we can again put a 2-ton payload on the back. Next, we're going to get into the sand run. This sand's soft, but not something that's going to get us hung up. There are certain areas, especially in Florida, that we have this sugar sand that is very, very soft. And what we do in the sand pit is we show you the ability to inflate and deflate the tires, the central tire inflation system. If you thought you were going to have appreciable loss of traction or a very, very soft surface, let the air out, the tire becomes bigger. You can up to double your traction again with the use of the inflation system. And the beauty is you can put the air back in when you come out the other side. You can do fronts, rears, or all four at the same time. This is good not only in sand, but also in mud and other soft terrain conditions. And our next obstacle is the swimming pool, or the fording pond, as we like to call it. 30 inches deep. Everything from 30 inches and down in the Hummer is air vented, which means it stays pressure neutral underwater. We have problems with other vehicles. As you get into water, the components to change in pressure sucks the water in and contaminates those components. Creating a little wave there. But again, designed to do this for long periods of time. That should give you a little better idea of what the Hummer's all about. You really don't need a huge piece of property to do this. This is very compact, and it's worked wonderful for us. But one thing about the course, it sticks with the people. If you have a proper demonstration course, that customer is going to come back to you. He enjoyed the experience so much, he knows if you do that first class, your service must be first class, it's all got to be right, and they'll always come back to you, and that's important.